Hey everybody, it's your favorite funeral director, the Grave Woman, and I just wanted to come make a brief update about where we're standing with the petition to remove the racist language from mortuary science education handbooks for mortuary colleges, as well as the textbooks that include racist and discriminatory language against communities of color. So myself, along with the representatives of the Radical Death Studies, who's led by Dr. Cami Fletcher, who is an amazing human being. She's a PhD and she is doing amazing work along with her cohort to decolonize death care, met with the president of the American Board of Funeral Service Education last month. And to be honest, the meeting was extremely disappointing, draining, and unfruitful in the sense that no accountability was taken by the ABFSE to acknowledge that the language in the textbooks and the handbooks is racist. In addition to that, this morning, myself, along with the modern mortician, Melissa, and Sandy from the Radical Death Studies, who is doing amazing work to decolonize death care, attended a breakout session here at the NFDA Expo and Convention in Baltimore, where I frankly asked the executive director of the organization what their influence was on mortuary science education, where he responded that they are directly responsible for the curriculum and for mandating the curriculum, which contradicts what we were told by the president in our meeting. So long story short, there is no update to provide other than myself, the modern mortician, the Radical Death Studies group, and others online that provide supplemental and continuing education are just trying to figure out how we can get our information out to as many people as possible, because there isn't really any accountability or, from our perspective, desire to change the curriculum or the handbooks. I'm sorry to have to disappoint you guys who have been so supportive. This is not us giving up. This isn't us saying that we're no longer going to try to make this change, but it's just been very discouraging and unfruitful to date. And for those of you who are wondering why we're targeting the American Board of Funeral Service Education, ABFSE, as I mentioned in my previous videos, it is because they are responsible for educating funeral service professionals. In addition to that, we're also including the individuals who are responsible for creating what we call the National Board Exam or the conference exam, which all funeral service professionals have to pass in order to obtain licensure. Now, these two agencies are vitally important in this conversation because mortuary school curriculum and education is based upon what the conference exam dictates is standard educational knowledge for funeral service professionals. So if the curriculum in mortuary science education is not reflective of what's on the national board exam, there's a gap there. So in order to change the national board exam, the curriculum must be changed. And in order to ensure that the curriculum is going to be changed, this information as far as cultural competency and care for all bodies has to be reflective in the national board exam. So I hope that shines some light and makes sense of why they're being targeted specifically. In addition, they are the governing body for mortuary science education programs that are accredited through them. So they would be the party to go to say, hey, why is this language being allowed to be used in textbooks that you use or that you require that your educational institutions use, as well as why is this racist language reflected in your handbooks for institutions that are accredited by your agency. So I just wanted to elaborate on that for those who may be confused about that. Thank you. And so the pushback we're getting from these agencies or the ABFSE is that there are no new textbooks to replace the old textbooks with, or even if there was a textbook written, they would not promote nor endorse that textbook, which is discouraging for, let's say, myself or the Radical Death Studies group. It discourages us from even investing the energy into creating this textbook or creating text that are reflective of cultural competency, because if we're going to write the book and you're not going to support it or make it mandatory, what's the point? It's also vitally important to understand that these instructors at these institutions are terrified of going against their accrediting agencies because they don't want to lose, the institutions don't want to lose their accreditation. No one wants to put their license in jeopardy. No one wants to speak against these agencies because they're extremely powerful, and as they should be. Funeral service and mortuary science are not only sacred arts, but they're vitally important arts to our society, and their practice is essential in our society. But the problem is that the information is just outdated. And in the meeting this morning, they talked about how they are revising the information every year and sending out surveys every year to professionals that are in the profession, and they want to know what professionals think. But myself, along with many other professionals, have never received these surveys. I've never had the opportunity to participate in contributing to the conversation about what should be included on this exam from a professional standpoint. Not just what I think should be included on the exam, but what are professionals really doing on the job. So the rabbit hole goes very deep here. I've had several people come up to me today and say, your TikTok video was so needed, or, come up to Melissa or Sandy and say, thank you so much for speaking up. We work in these institutions and we just can't speak up, or we're afraid to speak up, or for whatever reasons, they're just afraid to speak up. And I completely understand that because their jobs are on the line. But being that I have a little bit more freedom than some of these individuals, and being that it's just not right, especially the lack of cultural competency, not only as it relates to the care of Black bodies, but all BIPOC communities, all people who identify as either trans or non-binary, or however you identify, everyone dies, and everyone deserves to be taken care of by a professional in a way that not only acknowledges your existence as a human being, but honors it. And in mortuary school, unfortunately, we aren't taught to do that except for white people. There are some progressive mortuary schools out there. I don't want to make it seem like all mortuary schools are bad, but the governing agency is not using their power to ensure that we're all represented in the curriculum. And that's really the focal point of this conversation. I feel like I need to make it clear that it is the desire of just about every funeral professional that I know to serve families, all families that walk through their door. I'm in no way trying to demonize the death care industry. Our industry is beautiful. Our industry is filled with professionals who give their all every day for not a lot of money, for not a lot of praise, and who really care and are protective of not only the families, but the bodies that they serve. What I am saying, and what those who are sharing this message are saying, is that everyone needs to be included in the standard level of professional training for funeral service and mortuary science practitioners that graduate from accredited mortuary science programs in this country. And in the year 2022, there's no reason that I should have students emailing me after taking one of my courses on cultural competency or racism and death care, disenfranchised grief, or even self-care, and say, I learned none of this in mortuary school. When we learn about Catholic funeral rites, we learn about Jewish funeral rites, we learn about white funeral rites. when not only white people pass away, and I'm not saying only white people are Catholic or Jewish, but there is no curriculum currently in mortuary science educations that deal with caring for Black and BIPOC individuals. So I just felt the need to say that because I know TikTok is crazy, the internet is crazy, and people will take a portion of what is said and run with it. But I wanted to make sure that my message is being delivered clearly and articulately, to say that all we're asking for is inclusivity of all and cultural competency as it relates to the care of all. You guys have a great night. Live life, love hard. Talk to you later. And if you're coming in on the tail end of this, scroll back a few videos where you see the first tag for racism and death care. I have on a black and white shirt, and start from there and work your way back up to the front. Don't just make an assumption based on the end of the conversation. Don't come in trying to give your opinion on the end of a conversation. Take the time to watch all of the videos. Thank you.